Hey, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, BabyMetal fan. I haven't done one of these videos for a couple of months, and as I said, I wasn't sure that I was going to do any more, and yet here I am. So, part of the reason that I had been hesitant to continue to do them, as I said before, is that I don't want to waste people's time and talk about stuff that either doesn't really contribute to the conversation or is stuff that everybody already knows. And that was particularly hesitant about the next song, which I'm going to talk about, which is Starlight, from the Metal Galaxy album and the beginning of the final three songs on the album, which are generally grouped together as the Trilogy of Lights. And this is a cluster of songs that I think the fans have a lot of investment in for various reasons. And it's one of the reasons, as I say, that I just didn't know that I had anything new to add. And in truth, I still don't know for sure. So I'll probably make this recording and then see if it's worth posting or not. So let's take a listen and see what we find. Let's pause for a second. I'm not sure how much of this I'll actually use, but obviously we have a very sort of this compilation of live shows that we've got a very atmospheric, melancholic beginning to the song, and it goes, I think, with the blue light. As we've said before, BabyMetal tend to use a fairly limited palette of color deliberately as part of their sort of brand association. And the blue light obviously has that more introspective, reflective, melancholy feel. I have a feeling that's a word I'm going to use a lot in discussing this song. And, fans of the song, fans of the band will have their own, they'll know why. I should say, in preparation for making this video, as usual, I sort of play the song a whole bunch of times and think about it, reflect on it over a period of time to try and come to some conclusions about what I want to say, and I study the lyrics and so on. I also will sometimes watch reaction videos to see if, anybody says anything of substance. So that's 45 minutes of my life I won't get back. I learned that people like the music and the song and the vocal. So, words to live by. I know that they use that system of lasers in other songs as well, but I do think that in the context of this particular song being about Starlight and various associated things connected to Starlight, it has a little more power because obviously we have the individual points of light, but there's also this sense of the way that those lights then create a network, create a connection. I think it's interesting that the camera here is panning between the audience with the Kitsune signs up and the starlight creating that sort of imaginary network of connection, because I think in part that's what the song is about. This sort of initial melody we had heard before. It showed up in, I want to say, the summer of 2017. This song was released in October of 2018. And one of the reasons its associations are particularly loaded is that it was associated with the announcement of Yui leaving the band, which I guess was not a huge surprise since she had not been with them on the previous tour. But this was the video, the official video release came out the day that that was announced, and it was also shortly after the death of Mikio Fujioka, one of the Kami band guitarists. One of the direct associations, of course, between Mikio and this particular song is that his death resulted from him, as BabyMetal fans will know, it resulted from him falling from a viewing platform where he was stargazing in December of 2017, and he died in January of the following year. So I guess he was an amateur astronomer. So, the association of stars makes an obvious point of contact for this song. So I think this is one of the reasons that the song is slightly loaded. Though, as I said, this melody we had actually heard before as a kind of piece of the connective tissue that used in concerts. And whether that was the starting point of the song, whether that was where the song originated, or whether it was then imported into a song that was already either partially close to completion or at least in construction, I don't know. I don't believe anything has been said about that officially. So some of the song pre-existed some of the things that people generally assume it to be about, which is not to say that they are wrong. It just means that at some point the song in some form already existed before these other events added layers of meaning to it. Pause there for a second. That transition is at the absolute heart of the feel of the song, and I think the way that the whole thing is structured, and even the way the song is written in terms of content, that we begin with this very sort of melancholic choral sound. It has this sort of angelic, otherworldly, ethereal quality to it, and then we cut into this much more progressive, heavy rock, sort of djenty kind of sound. Djent is that version of progressive rock which has sort of preoccupation with, how we call it, sort of metrical, sort of polymetrical shifts, right? Switches in time signature, intricacy in guitar, which is, traditional to a lot of progressive rock. I guess djent is particularly described in terms of that very heavy, distorted, quite bassy guitar sound, usually played on sort of extended range guitars, 7-string, 8-string, 9-string guitars. And it's that combination of that sort of quite heavy gain, heavy distortion with a kind of palm muted sound effect to create that sort of real thumpy, sound, but in this very sort of intricate kind of way. I think of bands like Animals as Leaders, who are associated particularly with djent, though I it's a term that seems to get sort of argued over and reinterpreted. But it has that sort of core pounding intricacy and time signature switching, and so on. So we start off with this very sort of calm, thoughtful, reflective kind of thing, and then into this sort of pounding, darker sound. And let's talk about the lyrics a little. Toki o koete, toki hanate, far away in English. When you initially hear this song, and I've noticed this with a lot of those reaction video people, they don't seem to realize that a lot of the song is actually in English. There's not that many lines in Japanese. The first line is, and it means, I'm using toki as a transcription of the kanji because that's what I'm hearing. It's not the way it generally appears on sort of machine translation. But I'm taking the first line to mean that transcend time and space and unleashing something far away, right? And then hashiri tsuzuke haruka kanata, far away. So to continue running, we've heard hashiri, of course, from karate before, so you're familiar with that word. Continue running far away, to run away, right? So we're escaping time and space and taking off, getting far away. And then we go into the English part. The wind blows, fly higher, fly higher in the sky, fly higher in the night, and then starlight, hikari terasu sono saki he, shining the light into the future or into the beyond. Let's catch up. I didn't paraphrase the growly voice, which seems to be in English, but I can't make out exactly what it's saying. I can't find an official transcription of that line, and where I have seen people write what they think it is clearly wrong because it's nonsense, you know. So either somebody's writing very bad English or we're just not hearing it. It's so heavily distorted that I don't even want to speculate. Man, let me just get through the words and then we'll spend a little time talking about what the whole thing finally means. This is a hard song to talk about because the blend of that sort of ferocious energy and the sort of the heaviness of it, along with that pathos and the sadness of the melody, I think the juxtaposition of those things means that we're constantly sort of switching, but they belong together. They're of a piece. They're not separate factors. The song has a number of different movements, you know, a number of different pieces of melody that fit together, as is often the case with BabyMetal, but there is still a sense of unity to it, and that unity, that the unification, I think, is in that sort of sadness of it, the melancholy of it. You see the way that real sort of bassy guitar riff is working, and then you layer on that vocal over the top, which is so sort of light and sweet is the wrong word, but there is a kind of purity to it and a lightness to it, and it's the sort of juxtaposition of the two is such a great example of what this band do so well, and I think it's sort of indicative of the maturity of where they are now, that they're able to do these things without it sounding jokey. This is not a kawaii form of prettiness, cuteness. There's a sort of clarity of feeling, which is much more adult, and I think that's fitting to the song. Okay, pause there. Sagashi motome kakenukete, get away. So we're looking for something, seeking it. Run, get away. And then kyoku no kakera, deja vu, meja vu, fade away. Kyoku no kakera. So it's a piece of memory. And then deja vu, meja vu, fade away. Okay, so this is where things get a little tricky. A piece of memory and then deja vu. Okay, so I've seen people talk about this a little online, and they say, oh, deja vu is about memory, it's about the past. And except that it's not really, is it? Deja vu is not actually about the past. It's about the present feeling like the past. It's about a moment where something that you're doing now feels like something you have already done. And it's quite an unsettling feeling. And, we can explain it psychologically, neurologically, or even, I guess, quantum mechanically, right? That sense of, oh, well, this is the universe fragmenting. Because one of the things that happens with deja vu is that you feel like you're in a pattern. I think this is why it's so disorienting, because we are creatures of linear time. We move forward, or this is the way we perceive time. We perceive it in a sort of causal progression. Right? I do one thing and it leads to the next thing, to the next thing, and to the next thing. The problem with deja vu is that for a split second, it feels like you're trapped in a loop of some sort, that you've already done this. You've been in this particular place before. And I don't know about you, but I often experience it with a kind of accompanying sense of panic. I often feel like if I don't break out of that, whatever that loop is, something bad is going to happen. Maybe that's just me, my own particular pathology. But I do feel that. So we're seeing present action and experiencing it as something that has already occurred. So there's this odd sense of the past and the present colliding in ways that affect the future. So time, instead of being that sort of linear progression, has become sort of oddly circular or elliptical or something. And the expression of it here is particularly interesting because obviously we're using a Japanized version of an English phrase, which is really a French phrase, déjà vu, meaning already seen. But here we have déjà vu, meja vu, and no matter what I do, I can't find what meja vu is supposed to mean. I asked my Japanese mother-in-law, and she has been pointedly silent on the subject, so I'm not sure what that means. The one thing that occurs to me is, of course, that the word me in Japanese means eyes, so we're seeing déjà vu, meja vu. Déjà vu is being somehow repeated with variation, but the variation here is re-emphasizing eyes using, as in something formerly already seen, vu. Not sure. But that sense of the past somehow repeating itself and repeating itself again with minor variation, I think is somehow part of what this song is about, being somehow trapped in some sort of cycle that we are trying to escape. Yeah? I may come back to this, but that's what I think at the moment. And then next part of the English, which is dreaming now, fly higher in the night, fly higher in the sky, starlight, hikari, hanatsu ano basho e, to that place where the light shines. struck me as I was watching that video that we see, and this is always the case with concert footage these days, that when you see things from the perspective of the audience, one of the things that you always see also is people holding up their phones, videoing, trapping or attempting to trap and preserve the moment of liveness for future enjoyment, right? To go back to it. And of course, I've done this in concerts as well. I hold up my camera and video what's happening. And there's this odd sense that you're then watching the live event through the camera and you're experiencing it in part as something that you would see on screen rather than as something that you're experiencing in the present, a lived experience. And this seems to be how we live our lives a lot of the time, right? We experience things through cameras and through repeating those memories in an attempt to sort of relive them, which is the déjà vu, right? This is the sort of the desired déjà vu, the attempt to somehow not just live the present as if it was the past, but relive the past as if it's the present. Maybe. And then we have that sort of little breakdown and the rhythm shifts again. That's what I mean about the gent sound, right? The sort of alternating time signatures we seem to be switching. It sounds like from 3/4 to 4/4 and back, and that sort of heavy driving rhythm, and the sort of double bass drum thing going at the same time as well. Yeah. Wherever we are, we'll be with you. We'll never forget shining starlight. Wherever you are, you live in my heart. We'll never forget shooting star. Wherever we are, we'll be with you. We'll never forget shining starlight. Wherever you are, you live in my heart. We'll never forget shining star. So, this is where I think that sense of the previous verses, that sense of trying to escape, to run away, to transcend time and space, to become starlight or to join the stars, has become fairly abstract, fairly typical BabyMetal sentiment, right? And then in this section, it gets sort of oddly personalized. We suddenly have that you pronoun, which is comparatively rare in BabyMetal songs, and we seem to be referring to someone specific. And this is where the fan base says this is a song about Yui, this is a song about Mikio, and this is, I think, where it gets a little difficult because, one of the things I've said many times before is that the songs seem to be deliberately structured to be not universally applicable, but very widely associated with whatever the audience wants it to be about, right? And sometimes when I'm justifying one of my crazy readings, I say, I'm not saying that this was intended by the band. This is the baggage that I bring to the song. These are sort of the musical associations that I feel like I'm hearing and things like that. And this is, something that they have talked about and Koba has talked about many times, that the songs are deliberately intended to have openings for the audience to sort of slot themselves in and say, here's what it means to me. In the case of this particular song, while the audience sometimes has said, sometimes the fan base, and I get this, sometimes people say, well, no, they said it was about this, therefore that's what it means. And I'm like, well, no, that's what it meant to them when they were composing it, or this is what it meant to them when they were performing it, or something. It doesn't necessarily limit the range of meanings. And I think that the associations with both Yui and Mikio are, to a certain extent, fan projections. I don't know that the song was written with them in mind. I think it has become about them to a certain extent in ways that I think are completely understandable. And, certainly Sue has spoken about performing the song and thinking about Yui and her absence and the sort of ongoing connection with her. And Stephen Chen, as ever, sent me some stuff on this, pointed it out. And I think that's absolutely right. And I think that, when she's singing the song, some of the earnestness of her performance probably comes from these personal associations. I have no idea how close she was to Mikio. No idea at all. I think sometimes as fans, we assume that they're all hanging out together and spending all their time together and chatting and they're friends. And I don't know that that's the case. I don't know to what extent the girls and the band are completely separate and that they have a working, rehearsing, performing relationship, and that's all. I don't know. Obviously, I would expect the relationship between Sue and Yui to have been closer. And it does seem to me that the song has, as I say, it has become about those things, and that's good. And this is just to reiterate what Stephen was saying. One of the things that he sent me was this quote from an interview where Sue says, obviously I'm not going to read it in Japanese, I'm just going to read the English translation, courtesy of Stephen and Capable Paramedic. I thought of Starlight as a song lamenting the loss of our important friend Yui Metal, wondering what to do and how to move forward. So when I first started singing it, I interpreted it as me shouting by myself. But as we performed the song more and more, that interpretation gradually changed. It feels like I'm wrapped up in it. There are countless stars, aren't there? So even if someone's not there, we're connected. They're watching over and embracing us. As such, my interpretation has changed to recognize the many people protecting me. At first, I used the high note at the beginning of the song and chorus to shout and scream in solitude, but now it has transformed into one that conveys the message of the song far and wide. So that's really interesting, right? Because it's saying both. It's saying that on the one hand, yes, it was absolutely bound to Yui in certain ways, but then it has sort of morphed away from that and become something more general, which I think is really interesting and therefore supports kind of both readings. Good. And I know that for fans who are very invested in the band themselves, that's part of what gives the song its power. And who am I to disagree with that? For me, personally, I take Koba at his word when he says he wants the songs to be appropriate to people and whatever they think of them. So for me, I think the song has a more general association with loss and with people who are no longer in your life. Especially people who have died, right? So for me, the power of the song is, while the you is apparently specific, it doesn't tell you who the you is, and you're free to make that about whoever you want it to be about. And that sense of somebody being absent but still somehow present. And that's the deja vu, meja vu thing, right? That sense that something, that there's a sort of frozen circularity to time that we want to hold on to. Somebody who is, in this case, in the way I'm reading it, somebody who's important, who you want to keep there, who isn't there, but we hold on to the past as if it is the present, and we turn that linear time into something which is more circular or elliptical, right? Continuous, yeah. As if the energy, like Starlight, goes on and reconnects. And there's that, there's an old XTC song, sort of somewhat jokingly talking about the same idea, the idea that stardust, that we're all made of light, we're all made of literal molecules. The atoms of exploding stars are what has sort of made us who we are, given us the sort of the matter that has allowed life on this planet to continue. So there's this sort of literal, physical sense of unity across the universe, which is kind of an extraordinary thought. Obviously, mostly we're meaning it metaphorically, but there's a kind of literal scientific truth to that. The origin of matter as being coming from stars. I think that the central metaphor of the Starlight serves both the very personal reading of what the song is about, and also the sense of what the band singing about the band, right? Because stars are, by definition, on the one hand, simply there in the night sky and surrounding us. They're also an image of things that shine very brightly in our own lives. They're also, star is the standard image of, rock performers. So Yui was a star. Mikia was a rock star, right? So, there's a kind of a pun on the term, on the idea of the song seeing these people as stars in the one sense, becoming stars in another metaphorical sense, right? These are things that shine for everybody, right? That's what makes you a star. It's not just that you are a point of light, you're in the spotlight, but you're also somehow generating light for a fan base, that you're one of the ways that other people are connected through you, right? So, so the image of the star is of something that connects people, as in that sort of image of the lasers at the beginning, that creates a kind of network that the individual brilliance brings people together. And it's not just stars. When my father died, and I remember going to speak at the funeral, and one of the things he had said to me before he died was that he was afraid, because he was older, that when he died, no one would remember him, that, this is very personal, that he would be forgotten, or that his life would seem like it didn't matter. And I remember going to the church to speak, and he was a teacher, and it was absolutely packed to the doors, hundreds of people, And when I mentioned his feeling about feeling somehow forgotten, or that he hadn't done anything with his life, there was this sort of strange laugh, sad laugh, but a laugh throughout the congregation of people amazed that he might think that, we are connected by the people we love. We're connected to other people, not just to them, but we're connected to other people. Other people share the same light that are generated by special people. That, to me, is what the song's about. And I think, in terms of the sound of the song, if we talk about past and present and this sort of odd sense of the way that the temporal dimension of the song is being somehow conflated, that we have these multiple levels of time happening simultaneously, it makes sense that what we have here is there's a melody line with a set tempo, we've got a rhythm section which is going double tempo, and a vocal section which is going half tempo. So we've got like 3 different layers of temporal signature on top of each other, all working in harmony in the present while doing something, all doing something quite radically different. And of course, there's a self-referentiality here to the music, because that sense of the way that past and present combine is a phenomenon associated with music, right? That you hear a song and it transports you back to the moment when you first heard it, or when you were listening to it a lot, or something like that. We talked about this a little, I think, with regard to Our Dama Fever, I think, when we were talking about that sort of the time machine effect of music and the way that it collapses or makes time somehow circular rather than linear. So yeah, the sound itself enacts the very phenomenon in the same way that the recording of somebody's voice or something brings them back to you when they're not present. I should say there is an official music video as well. Last time I tried to show sections from the Distortion music video, which is very similar to this, and they ran into all kinds of copyright issues, so I finished up having to just include a few stills. But my feelings about the music video for this one are kind of similar to my feelings for the Distortion video, which was that they were both clearly designed to sort of set up Apocrypha, the comic book, which was sort of steeped in a sort of fantasy version of the BabyMetal lore, and to set up the new tour. This one specifically shows the sort of 7 Avenger figures. We get a glimpse of it. I guess it's Sue and Moa in profile at the end, though they look sort of curiously doll-like and hard to identify. But otherwise, the band themselves don't appear in the video. And again, it's a collection of sort of fairly typical / generic images of fantasy, adventure, and hardship. We use the sort of that BabyMetal seal image that shows up. But again, not a clear sense of narrative, and I think it's more there for atmospherics and for leading into this sort of darker period that the band are engaging in ways, and that suits the tonality of the song. But I don't find the actual imagery of the video particularly helpful in understanding what the song means. I don't really see a connection between the two. And this is a far less sort of epic fantasy kind of song than Distortion is. But I do think that it's a transition song, right? I said before that I thought that the song had a lot of maturity and melancholy to it. And I think that, in a sense, this is the beginning of the end of the phase, which actually just finished, 3 years later, with the Budokan shows and the sealing of the band and the suggestion that when they re-emerge, they will be in some ways different. We don't know what that difference will be, but it does feel to me like this is a process that has been ongoing for about 3 years, as they have sort of been reflecting on their past and taking from it what they value and storing it up in ways to sort of prepare for the next journey, which is what the song is about, right? Somehow transcending time and space in moving forward from hardship, difficulty, loss. So, yeah, insofar as the video contributes to that, I think that's about it. But I do think that this is a milestone song. And if I get around to it, I'll use this also as a segue into the final two songs of the album, Shine and Arcadia, which seem to sort of be variations and progressions on the same theme. So just to play with that idea, and again of the idea of past and present coming together, I thought it might be interesting to sort of explore the way that the song, to my ear, also draws on a previous melody. So this is obviously that's just the basic melody line. I'm playing that in E flat minor or D sharp minor, if you would prefer. So this is just to establish the notes of the melody line, right? And then back to the other. So, obviously the two tunes are different, but I think that they are in some ways connected, related. They're playable on top of each other. They're both constructed out of the same very simple repeating phrase. Obviously, the one that I'm playing towards the end there is "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and that seems to me apposite. "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" is the English name for the folk song. It's actually the folk song originates, I think, in its English version, early 19th century. The song itself is at least 100 years older than that and is French in origin. It's a song that has been heavily adapted and reused many, many times. It's a favorite for variations. Mozart famously did, I think, a good dozen different variations on "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." But it does seem to me appropriate that it's an analogous melody line to show up in this song, in that it's again about Starlight, and about the question of what that starlight is and how it connects to the human experience, but also the idea of it being simply a tune from the past, which is becoming part of the present. Again, I'm not saying that it's clearly or directly there. I think that there's a sense in which we're doing kind of variations on a theme, because from the perspective of the song, that's kind of what the nature of the present is, and you're trying to secure some form of future connection to whatever it is that you value. So as I say, the past and the present and the future somehow combine, and whether that's a way of paying homage to a dead guitarist or an absent band member, singer, friend, or whether that's, other people, moments from your life that have passed and that you make space for in memory as a way of holding on to them in the present and moving forward into some kind of future which somehow keeps them around. That's, I guess, what I think the song is finally about. And I think that's all I have to say about this. And I realize that this is a very sort of down energy, low beat discussion. So I will not be getting the tens or hundreds of thousands of views, which I might be able to get if I pretended I'd never heard the song before, and shook my head a lot and said how great it was. So anyway, yes, and on that note, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see. Maybe I'll do another of these at some point in the future. But for now, I think that's what I got. We are heading into Thanksgiving weekend as I record this, and then into the sort of Christmas holidays. For those who celebrate, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. And it's a time when we spend a lot of time positively and melancholically reflecting on the past, trying to turn it into something positive for the future, and honoring those, treasuring those who are no longer with us. So I hope that songs like this help you to keep alive the things that matter to you, because all things are transient, all things go away, and we find ways to try to keep them with us. And I think that's what this song is about. Okay, that's it. Bye for now.